The Cybermen are possibly the second most well-known monsters of Doctor Who. First appearing in 1966's The 10th Planet, these cyborg monsters quickly became fan favourites, becoming the main adversary of the second Doctor, although their later appearances in the original run of the show were less and less successful, culminating in the widely panned Silver Nemesis of 1988. The design and core concept of the Cybermen had become outdated, and they simply weren't as scary as they once were. When Doctor Who returned in 2005, it successfully revived the iconic Daleks, and showrunner Russell T Davies wanted to repeat this with the Cybermen in 2006, enlisting the help of Tom McRae to write the two-part story Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel, which strands the Doctor, Rose and Mickey in a parallel universe, where an evil billionaire has a plan to take over the world and turn humanity into Cybermen. With the way our reliance on technology has grown, do these two episodes hold up all these years later? The two-parter starts by introducing one of the pillars of the science fiction genre, the parallel universe. Everyone loves a good old parallel world. It's a concept Doctor Who itself explored in the season 7 story Inferno, all the way back in 1970. This story sets up the concept in a very similar way, with the TARDIS falling out of the time vortex into the parallel Earth. I like how the TARDIS is written out of the story, at first appearing to have died, but then the Doctor works out that it can be recharged and brought back to life, but they're forced to stay in this parallel Earth until it can recharge. It's a good way of framing the story and putting the plot into motion. The story then splits our cast into half. Well, not really half because there are 3 of them, but you know what I mean. Rose finds out that her father is still alive in this universe and decides she wants to find him. Mickey also decides to go and explore the parallel world, giving the Doctor a choice of which one to go with or talk down, with him obviously going after Rose. This is great because it perfectly encapsulates the relationships between the trio. The Doctor was obviously going to choose Rose, and Mickey knows he is a spare part in the dynamic, further disillusioning him. Mickey has significant character growth and a clear journey throughout this story. He finds out that in this world his grandma is still alive, and this gives him a more three-dimensional backstory, teaching us more about him. Mickey eventually finds out his parallel Earth counterpart Ricky is the head of a vigilante group called the Preachers, who are trying to fight against Cybus Industries. I like this because Ricky is tougher than Mickey, creating an interesting contrast, and it opens Mickey's eyes to what he's capable of. Later, when Ricky dies, it almost gives Mickey a new purpose, with him deciding to stay behind at the end, to fight against the Cybermen and shut them down, with the help of Jake. His decision to leave his entire life behind and live in a parallel world with no return is really brave, and it shows how far he has come from the cowardly idiot who was terrified of the TARDIS in Rose. He has finally found a purpose with a chance to try again, along with a way to force himself to leave Rose behind, because he has no place in her in the Doctor's world. It completes his character arc and he finally becomes his own person, although this isn't the last we see of him. Whilst Mickey finds himself mixed in with the Preachers, Rose and the Doctor go on an adventure of their own, so Rose can meet Pete, who is hosting a birthday party for Jackie. Sean Dingwall is great in this episode, reprising the role after appearing as Pete Tyler in Series 1's Father's Day. Even though this parallel version was successful and became rich, he's very much still the same insecure character with a contentious relationship with Jackie. It's consistent enough that they feel familiar, but you can tell things are different in this parallel universe. There are similarities to Father's Day since Rose has a natural, instant connection with Pete and Jackie, with Rose having individual conversations with both, despite her apparently just being a serving girl. It's also a good way to show how Rose has a biased view of her mother, who is hostile to those she doesn't know, a character trait exaggerated by making her rich and entitled in this parallel world.
You're nothing but stuff, you're just the serving girl for God's sake. And you are certainly not getting paid. Don't you dare talk to me.
I love the Cyberman attack on the party. Throughout the whole first part of the story, the Cybermen are teased and alluded to, with blurry views of them and extreme close-ups. It really makes you want to see them in full, and I think this creates a great dynamic and a tense build-up. They converge on the party and we finally see them properly, revealing their new design, which makes them look tough and impenetrable. It's a strong design and it hammers home how dangerous they are. They're heavily armoured killing machines, rather than the silver rubber suits of the past. Instead, they're stomping metal monsters with no human features remaining. I think they're really scary, even though their deleted catchphrase isn't great. I love their lack of individuality and their relentless quest to convert everyone into Cybermen, without discriminating or showing mercy. It creates some good body horror because we know that they are brutally and forcefully converted from living, conscious humans against their will, stripping their humanity and individuality. It represents just how important emotions and personalities are to us. I really like how this two-parter gives the Cybermen a new, alternate backstory that doesn't overwrite the original Cybermen. Rather than coming from Mondas or Telos, the new Cybermen were created on a parallel Earth by a billionaire's tech company. It updates the Cybermen to make them represent more modern fears of technology, showing modern society's obsession with constantly upgrading technology and our fear of technology overwhelming humanity. The 2006 Cybermen are human brains transplanted into an artificial, long-lasting metal body. They're the most realistic outcome of humans creating Cybermen. A dark and chilling look into the future if we continue going down the path we're going down. They're not Cybermen as we knew them from classic Who, they're just a different take on the same concept, a different path to the same end result. I think it's a great way to reintroduce them because it modernizes them, but it doesn't overwrite the original Cybermen. Despite the obvious parallels to Davros, I think Lumik is a good vessel for the creation of the Cybermen. He's a bitter and disabled yet rich old man, so his motivation is understandable, wanting to be able to live forever without the fragility of the human body. I honestly don't mind that Roger Lloyd Pack's portrayal is incredibly campy, because I feel like that fits the wider Russell T Davies era tone. It channels the over-the-top kind of mad scientist supervillain character type of 80s and 90s movies. There's a certain charm to it.
And how will you do that from beyond the grave?
I don't quite understand.
Kill him.
Lumik's grand plan to convert the world into Cybermen revolves around hijacking everyone's Bluetooth earpieces and making them walk into factories for conversion. Almost everyone is shown to be wearing these earpieces, and it creates a very sinister Black Mirror style atmosphere since everyone in society suddenly stops and receives downloads directly to their brains. It ties back to that overall theme of technological fear because everyone is connected to the same network, and it feels like they're mindless drones even before they're turned into Cybermen. The actual conversion into Cybermen is one of the main themes of the story, including an amazing scene of people being converted but their screams are covered up by the Lion Sleeps Tonight. It's great dissonance and juxtaposition because these are two things that shouldn't go together. We also have a good scene where Pete and Rose come across a converted Jackie, who is now emotionless and has lost her individuality, although she still recognises Pete, making it a really striking and emotional moment. Similarly, the Doctor and Mrs. Moore destroy Cyberman's emotional inhibitor, meaning it remembers who it is. This is a fantastic scene, finding out that the Cyberman was a woman ready to get married the next day. In a way, both of these scenes humanise the Cybermen, showing the humans underneath and making you sympathise for them, because they were forced into this cold and emotionless shell. This two-parter does such a great job of communicating the visceral horror of the cyber conversion. Even though the screams, lasers and saw blades are a bit over the top, it really makes the body horror hit home, because it leaves you to imagine the details, showing just enough of the conversion to stay suitable for kids, but suggesting a much more horrifying reality. I adore the opening of Age of Steel. After a great cliffhanger with the Doctor and his group surrounded by Cybermen, they escape and head towards Battersea Power Station, where Lumik's headquarters are. I love the sequence where they're forced to sneak through the streets, with Cybermen at every turn. It's helped by the marching of the Cybermen, which makes them look like a zombie-like army of perfectly synced robot killers. They're kind of like corporate zombies in a way, sort of a metaphor for consumerism. The sequence is really really good, and you really get the sense that the Cybermen are a huge army. It culminates in the dramatic death of Ricky, who is electrocuted just before he can climb over a fence. The following infiltration of the Battersea factory is great, with our protagonist splitting up into groups of 2 to get into the station. This creates a good pace to the story, because we can switch between the groups regularly and see what each one is doing. It utilises our main trio well, pairing them up with the supporting cast and giving them jobs related to their characters. Rose is confronted with a converted Jackie, Mickey has to hack into the mind control signal, and the Doctor has to deal with a Cyberman with a broken inhibitor chip. Each of them is put in a scenario suited perfectly for them, and I think it really highlights each of their important qualities. I love the scene where the Doctor and Mrs. Moore are slowly walking through pitch black tunnels filled with deactivated Cybermen. It gives us a good chance to learn about Mrs. Moore and understand her motivations, if only because she gets killed 5 minutes later by a somehow silent Cyberman. Even though it's a cheap way to gather some last minute sympathy for a side character, it does a good job fleshing out her character.
Go on then. What's your real name?
Angela Price. Don't tell us all.
The climax of Age of Steel sees the Doctor, Rose and Pete captive in the control room, leaving it up to Mickey to save the day, because he's a Chad like that. He tricks a Cyberman into punching a control panel, which destroys the signal and frees the people waiting for conversion. Then, in a brilliant Doctor moment, the Doctor is able to do some big brain magic and get Mickey to text the base code to Rose's phone, which is then used to make every Cyberman realise what they are and destroy themselves, in a really bittersweet ending, except for Lumic, the cyber controller, for some reason, who chases the heroes in an entertaining chase scene to the Zeppelin, before falling into an explosion in classic action fashion. I like how the climax plays out, because even though the whole phone code resolution is out of left field and could have been a cop-out, it's written and acted well. Whilst Mickey is going Hackerman mode in the Zeppelin, the Doctor has a really good speech about the benefits of humanity, explaining everything that the Cybermen lack. The debate about emotions and humanity was almost a tradition in classic Who stories, so it's great to see it continued here, with Tennant's brilliant performance as he talks to the cyber controller.
Once you get rid of sickness and mortality, then what's there to strive for? Hey? The Cybermen won't advance. You just stop.
I do kind of feel like Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel suffer from having almost too much going on. A lot of things are unexplored and underdeveloped, even though it's a two-parter. I adore the world building of the airships and curfews, with Britain having a president. The world we're shown is so rich, yet we don't get to explore it enough. But to be honest, I actually kind of like this about it. It's one of those worlds with so much in the background that you want to explore it more in depth. It's not frustrating that there's a lot of things underexplored. It's tantalizing, because it fires up your imagination. It's simply fantastic world building. Another thing that falls to the wayside because of timing is the relationship between Lumic and his main henchman, Mr. Crane, who is shown to be the one in charge of kidnapping people to convert, with one of my favourite Doctor Who scenes ever, where Crane lures a group of hungry, homeless people into a lorry where they are experimented on.
Christmas has come early, so come and get it.
Lumic's plan later affects Crane because he is almost a victim of the mind control. This makes him betray Lumic, trying to kill his boss and serving as a vehicle for Lumic becoming the cyber controller. But this whole betrayal angle falls a bit flat because they barely interact in the story, so we don't really have any reason to care about it. It's a shame, but it's simply a consequence of not having the time to explore it, because the two-parter is absolutely stacked and filled to the brim. I know they get some criticism, but I really enjoy Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel. I think they're brilliant episodes that hold up really well to this day. Not only are they directed well and feel very cinematic, but they also have really good themes about technology and the power tech giants have. It's a cautionary tale of an all too likely future, as we find ourselves more and more reliant on technology. It's a fantastic reintroduction to the Cybermen, updating them to address modern fears and terrifying an entire new generation of children. And who can forget the introduction of the amazing Cyberman theme by Murray Gold? It's simply iconic and one of my favourite leitmotifs of the modern show. Overall, Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel deserve an A on the Series 2 tier list. It's a great Cyberman story, making the monster scary again by modernising them and improving them with the higher budget of New Who. It completes Mickey's character development and shows just how far he has come as a person. The parallel Earth setting is imaginative and makes you want to explore it further because the world building makes it so interesting. It's an incredible story and it does a great job setting up the Series 2 finale. But before we can get to that, we have to make a few stops along the way, including the episode where a woman on 1950s TV sucks people's faces off while screaming about how hungry she is. Oh boy.